Hey everyone, my name's Ercy and welcome back to my channel. In this video, I'm going to give you a review, or at least my thoughts, on Senlin Ascends by Josiah Bancroft. If that's something you want to see, then stick around. So I happen to be quite liking this format of my review style videos where I'm breaking it down into certain categories. It helps me organize my thoughts and I hope it's helpful for you guys as well. So just let me know what you guys think. So I'm going to break it down into certain categories. I'm going to talk about what the book is about, what I like, dislike, the genre, my rating, and who I recommend this book to. So let's just start. So why did I pick up Senlin Ascends? So this book comes highly, highly recommended all over BookTube. The first time I saw this book was on Elliot Brooks' channel, and she loved this book. I think the whole series, she's been giving it 5 stars throughout. And then I've just been hearing it here and there from various different people. And then I believe Lezlie over on the Nerdy Narrative is doing a read along of the whole series in order to prepare for the November release of the final book of this 4-book series, The Fall of Babel, I believe. But so far I've only read Senlin Ascends. But yeah, once I heard about it all over BookTube, I had wanted to read it for a while. So seeing that read along on Discord over with the Nerdy Narrative and on the Wizardly Duo Discord, I believe they're also talking about this there as well. So it's just nice to talk about a book with people who are also reading it and discovering it at the same time that you are. So it was a good time. But what is the book about? Long story short, this book is about a headmaster. His name is Thomas Senlin, and he is a newlywed. And he wants to take his newlywed wife over to the Tower of Babel and have a good time there, right? It's supposed to be this tower that symbolizes the epitome of civilization. He's been dreaming of going there for so long. He saved his money and he's been wanting to go. So using his honeymoon as a good opportunity was just perfect for him. So he goes with his wife Myra over to the Tower of Babel. And as soon as he gets there, it's nothing like he expected. He loses track of his wife in a crowded market, and he is pretty much on a quest to look for her in this very overcrowded, dirty tower that is full of people who are lost, and he's just having a really hard time finding her. You would think this is something easy to do, just try to find your wife. Maybe you want to talk to the authorities, maybe they can help. But this tower, it seems to be like a character all on its own. Super fantastical with a lot of steam engine parts, and I'll talk about that in a little bit. But the inner workings of this tower and the different levels and ringdoms of this tower just makes it a whole world on its own. And Senlin has to go through the different levels to try to find his wife. In each ringdom, Senlin is meeting different characters who are helping him along the way and scamming him. So it's just really interesting to see the inner workings of this tower and how Senlin is trying to navigate through in order to find his wife. So let's talk about the genre. So this book is classified as a fantasy, but it's like steampunk because there's not really any magic in this. If anything, there's a lot of engines and different inventions working through the whole book. And I don't know, I thought steampunk was considered science fiction because it deals with inventions and stuff, and so it's rooted in science. But sci-fi and fantasy are always in the same section at the bookstore anyway, so it's okay. There's a lot of steam engine stuff that makes the tower sort of come alive, and the inner workings of the tower kind of creates its own magic on its own because of the way that the inventions or the mechanical things in the tower kind of work together in its own mysterious way to make the tower function. And I think that's really interesting. So even though there wasn't any magic, it is sort of magical to see the science behind all of the things that make the tower work. So it's a little different from a typical fantasy book, but I mean, it's pretty cool either way. So let's talk about what I liked in this book. So aside from the surprise steampunkiness, I love the idea of the bubble bursting, right? This entertains me to no end. I love this idea. So Senlin has been fascinated with the tower for so long. He teaches about it in his school, and he's just so excited to go see this tower. So with this romanticized idea of the tower in his head, he gets there and then he sees that it's dirty, it's corrupt, it's overcrowded. And it just reminds me of when people go to New York, right? So I'm from New York, so I have a different vision of what New York is compared to people that come to visit. And that's the same thing with like going anywhere, right? Like my idea of Disney World would be different from people who actually live in Orlando. But in this case, since I'm more familiar with New York, I'm going to talk about that. So I just think with New York and stuff, right? People have this vision of these pretty things, right? Of like Central Park, the Statue of Liberty, like Times Square, Flushing Meadows, right? The Freedom Tower, all these beautiful and amazing things that you can't see anywhere else. I mean, you can see different versions of it in other places, but you come to New York to see those things, right? But then you actually go to Times Square. And then you're like, oh my God, I'm in Times Square. And then you turn a corner and there's like trash everywhere. And the guys in the costumes are like dirty and mangy and they're getting into fights with each other. You go to take the subway to go to Central Park and you're like, oh my God, I'm on the subway. And then there's like a rat eating like pizza in the corner, right? Or you're driving to the Bronx Zoo and there's potholes busting your tires, you know? Or Flushing Meadows, like the bridge to take you to Flushing Meadows Park, like you have to roll up your windows because it smells like sewage in crossing that bridge. Like there's just so many little things that people from New York know what to look out for. And that's the same thing in this tower. Like the people that are from the tower know what to look out for and know how to get around those things. But then people that are coming in are taking advantage of because they don't know, and they don't know for a reason, because obviously people who are inspired by things in this tower aren't going to talk about those nasty things that they don't want you to know, because it's not nice. But I love this idea of seeing Senlin with this burst bubble, and he gets there and he's like, wait a second, this is not what I imagine it to be. And I just love that in a book because it's just so entertaining to me. I also just love the whole idea of the tower itself. Before I started reading this, I started looking up like different references of the tower in literature, right? So obviously one of the more famous examples is from the Bible, right? I believe in the book of Genesis, where the Tower of Babel, I believe the Tower of Babel, or in Babylonia, right? Like that's what the myth says. Like people began constructing this tower because they were so great and they wanted to make this construction to lead to God or to heaven, right? But God felt that the unity of humanity needed to be brought down a level, because then people would think they're so great, right? Like they're going to be at a certain level with God, and God's like, no, I need to bring you down a notch. Like you need to calm down. So the story goes like God invents language in order to divide the people. And I kind of feel like that's similar to what's going on with the tower in the book, because each ringdom is its own society and they're sort of disconnected from one another. And so you kind of get stuck at certain levels of the tower. And I feel like that sort of ties into that biblical myth of God separating people by languages in order to make it difficult for them to cooperate with one another or work with one another, kind of bringing people down a notch. So people will never be truly unified because they can't ever truly understand each other. And I don't know if Josiah Bancroft used that as inspiration for these ringdoms, but I really liked seeing that tie in together, because like I saw that influence there, but he did it in a much more fantastical, dirty, nitty-gritty way, and I just thought that was really cool. The surprise grimdarkness of this book also was pretty cool to see. I wasn't expecting those scenes, and they really came as a surprise when, all of a sudden there's gore and violence, and you're like, wait, where did this even come from? But it was a good surprise. I also love this appreciation of art that we see in this book. There's lots of references or lots of descriptions of paintings and stuff. And I really love to see when authors try to incorporate that into a book. And that was done very well over here. I love the flashback scenes because then we really get to know the characters and what motivates their decisions. And as well as it helps us get to know Myra, because Myra gets lost very early on in this book, and the rest of the book is through Senlin's perspective, but we want to get to know Myra as well, like what makes her worth saving. And we get those through the flashbacks, and I thought they were really helpful in understanding who she was, and helps me feel connected to her even though we barely talk to her throughout the whole book. The prose was gorgeous in this book. That's another thing I really liked about this book. I felt like the writing was just very lyrical and pretty, but also comedic in times where I wasn't expecting, and that was a good time too. And the character growth is something that must be talked about. Senlin is a very naive character. He has this idea in his head, so he's not, he's a headmaster, so he's school smart, but he's not very street smart, and that shows throughout the book. And I can see why people would get frustrated with that, but I found it entertaining. It was pretty funny. Like I'm like constantly like, why would you do this? But it's like entertaining, and it helps kind of put like a comedic relief to the story when things are a little more serious. But as far as the character growth, like he's learning from his mistakes, and you see that throughout the book. Like he's slowly picking up things, learning his lesson, and continuing to make mistakes. And he's a very imperfect character, and I like that in books. I want people who are morally like in the middle. Like you don't know what you're going to do or what to expect, because we're all human and we're all complex and complicated. And we're not always going to make the smart decision. And that's exactly what you see here in this book. But what I loved most about this book is this appeal towards humanity. So Senlin came to the tower with this idealized version of what he expected it to be, this epitome of civilization, like philosophers and people live here, humanitarians, scholars, like these are the people that make up the tower, right? And then he gets there and it's like robbers, scammers. Like Senlin feels like this is a place for people to come to transcend the normality of human civilization, right? Like this is the place to elevate, and to see that people, even in this place of elevation, they're lower than low. Like if anything, it brings out the worst in people. But no matter what, like Senlin still tries to hold on to this idea of humanity and seeing the good in people, and not letting tragedy and corruption fester within himself. And he tries to do that for other people that he meets along the way, even though they have been brought down by the tower. So what did I dislike? Not much, because I love this book. I feel like, again, I'm gonna go back to the character of Senlin. I mean, there were moments where I was frustrated with him. I found it to be kind of entertaining. Like Senlin is very naive, and I can see people finding that annoying. Like obviously some of the choices that he would make are not things that I would do or the choices I would make. But I think again, it goes back to this idea of the bubble bursting. He learns to toughen up and acknowledge the reality of the tower, and he learns from it. And it makes for a really exciting quest up this tower. Let's talk about ratings. So my rating for this book was obviously 5 stars. I love this book very, very much. I just thought it was so much fun. Who do I recommend this book for? This is for people who want a fast-paced book, a book with an unlikable main character, and obviously a quest story with very pretty lyrical writing. If those are the things that you like in a book, this is for you. I wouldn't recommend this book to people who need to absolutely love a main character, because our main character in this book is kind of a dumbass despite being a headmaster of a school. I found that to be entertaining. Some people might find that frustrating. It's up to you. But if anything, I feel like there will be more people who will like this than dislike it. If you're looking for magic, this might not be for you, but I feel like after reading this, I didn't miss it. The tower itself, with all of the elements of the steampunkiness of it all, made up for the lack of magic because it was magical in its own way. But there it is, my review of Senlin Ascends, the first book of the Books of Babel series by Josiah Bancroft. I loved it, 5 stars. Let me know in the comments if you've read this. Did you like it? Did you dislike it? Let me know. If you plan on reading this, also let me know, because I love this book. I would love to talk about it with you. But that's it for me. Give this video a like if you enjoyed it, and subscribe if you want to see more. I hope you have an amazing day, and I'll talk to you guys soon.